The heavy door of the family court swings shut with a final thud. Aziza, 30s, elegant but wary, stands on the steps, a manila envelope warm in her hand. The evening sun is low, casting long shadows. Beside her, Kenyatta, 30s, her now ex-husband, fumbles with his phone. His hands tremble, but there's a frantic energy in his eyes. He takes a few steps away, but his voice carries on the still air. Kenyatta, into phone, hushed but eager. Lenanisha, it's done. I just signed. It's all clean. Come by the house tonight. We're celebrating. A woman's laughter, smooth and bright, tinny through the phone speaker. Kenyatta, smiling. Really? That fast? Well, I'm coming over. From now on, I'm your woman full-time, right? Aziza listens, her face a calm mask. It feels like watching a bad play where she's the unwitting star. Kenyatta turns, catching her eye. A flicker of embarrassment, quickly masked. Kenyatta, clearing his throat. Aziza, from now on we go our separate ways. Don't overthink it. Let everyone live the best they can. I wish you happiness. Aziza meets his gaze. She searches for her reflection in his eyes and finds nothing. It had been gone long before today. A faint, almost ghostly smile touches her lips. Aziza, don't worry. I'll live very well, and you'll be fine too. She turns. No clinging, no tears, no scene. Just the click of her heels on the stone as she walks away, leaving him on the steps. Interior Aziza's office, day. Sunlight slants across a sleek desk. Downtown high-rises are visible through the window. Aziza sits, poised. The divorce decree lies beside her keyboard. She picks up her office phone, dials. Hi, this is Aziza Garcia. I need you to help me with something. Starting today, I want to cancel all automatic transfers from my account. She listens, her expression unreadable. Yes, exactly. Starting this month, cancel them all, without exception. Pause. I'm sure. Please do it. Starting today, everything stops. She hangs up, leans back in her chair. The office is silent. In her mind's eye, Leola, her ex-mother-in-law, and Cairo, 8, his son sweet and trusting. A pang of guilt, sharp but brief. It settles. Aziza. V.O. I'm not a saint. I loved, I gave. But when people take your kindness for granted, when they see your money like water from a tap, it's time to turn it off. That isn't being cruel. It's returning the responsibility to where it belongs. Interior Kenyatta's house, night. The townhouse Aziza helped renovate. A cheap bottle of wine is uncorked. Pop. Kenyatta, Leola, and Lenanisha, 20s, glamorous, sharp, are in the living room. Cairo watches, wide-eyed. Cairo. Grandma, why are we drinking wine? Is something fun happening, Daddy? Kenyatta ruffles Cairo's hair, a forced heartiness. Kenyatta. From now on, Mama Aziza and I will live apart. Miss Lenanisha will be your new mom. We're starting a new, happier life. Understand, son? Lenanisha leans against Kenyatta, laughing. Now we're a real family, baby. Cairo looks around, confused. The room is familiar, but the air is different. He misses the smell of his mother's cooking, the sound of her footsteps. Exterior, alley. Interior, Aziza's apartment, night. Aziza arrives at a small apartment in the Arts District. The building is old but charming. She unlocks the door. The inside is small, immaculate, freshly painted. It smells of clean linen and new wood. Her space. Hers alone. She makes a simple dinner, pasta, grilled chicken, eats at the small table. The silence is profound but not empty. It's peaceful. Her phone rings. Screen. Cairo, son. Her heart lurches. She answers, video call. Cairo, on screen. His face is puffy, eyes red. Behind him, the living room of the old house. Cairo. Mama, why don't you sleep at home anymore? Daddy says you guys don't live together anymore. Is it that you don't love me anymore? Aziza, voice tight. Cairo, I love you just the same. Nothing has changed. It's just that Daddy and I will live in different houses, but I will always be your mother. Every weekend I'll pick you up. Where do you want to go? Cairo. I don't want to. I want you to wake me up for school. Come home, Mama. Aziza turns her face, composing herself. Son, there are things adults have to do, and they aren't always how we'd like. Listen to Daddy, eat well, be good at school. I need a little time. When you're older, you'll understand. I promise, wherever I am, I'm your support. Cairo. But Miss Lenanisha is my new mom. The words hang in the digital air. Aziza's jaw tightens. No, Cairo only has one mother. That's me. You can be polite, respect others, but in your heart, you know who carried you, who took care of you since you were a baby. Do you understand me? Cairo nods, sniffling. She calms him, hangs up, sits in the silence of her new home, the weight of his tears settling on her. Interior Aziza's apartment, morning. Sunlight streams in. Aziza is making coffee. Her phone rings. Mama Kenyatta. She hesitates, answers. Leola, VO, trembling. Aziza, daughter, why haven't I received the $600 this month yet? Aziza. Hello, Miss Leola. I canceled the transfer. Starting this month, I no longer have the responsibility to send you money. A stunned silence. Leola, VO. What? What do you mean? You sent it for 3 years. How am I going to live? Aziza. I've divorced Kenyatta. I'm not his wife anymore. His living expenses are his responsibility now. Leola, VO. Kenyatta doesn't have money. He has to pay the mortgage, take care of Cairo. Are you that cruel, Aziza? The accusation stings. 3 years of care reduced to this? Aziza. I took care of you for 3 years. I appreciate you, but I can't support my ex-husband's family. This is between you and Kenyatta. Leola, VO. I can't talk to him. He says the money before was from him, that he's tight now, that if I wanted, I should ask you. Aziza lets out a short, bitter laugh. It was my money, and he said it was his. Firm. Miss Leola, from now on, money matters need to be discussed with Kenyatta, with his permission. She hangs up, leans on the counter. Tears come, not from the rebuke, but from the painful truth. Her help was never seen as love, only obligation. The phone rings again. Kenyatta. Kenyatta, VO. Aziza, why did you cut off my mother's money? She's causing a scene. Aziza. What did you tell her to make her think the money from these 3 years was yours? Pause. Kenyatta stumbles. I didn't want her to think she was a burden on you. I took responsibility to keep up appearances. And saying since you earn more, I should take care of her? Is that also keeping up appearances? Silence. Then anger creeps into his voice. Kenyatta, VO. You're making life very difficult for her. $600 is nothing to you. You make $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Aziza. It's true. It's nothing. But I'm not your wife anymore. I have no reason to support your whole family. You're too selfish. You lived 10 years with my family, and now you turn your back? Repeat to me who turned their back first. You abandoned your family for another woman. You brought her home the same night of the divorce. On what grounds should I keep sending money? My mother was used to it. You'll upset her. Then get her used to the new situation. I'm not responsible anymore. She moves to hang up. My mother was used to it. You'll upset her. Then get her used to the new situation. I'm not responsible anymore. She moves to hang up. Don't think you're getting off scot-free. You still have Cairo. Do you really want to abandon your son? She closes her eyes, the oldest weapon. Don't use our son to pressure me. I would never abandon Cairo. Raising him is the responsibility of both of us. You know I can't support him. You know my income. Then what were you thinking when you signed for custody? Did you think I'd keep paying for everything while you just put your name on it? Only heavy breathing answers her, the realization dawning on him. She hangs up. The quiet morning is shattered, but her resolve is diamond clear. Exterior, City Park, day. Aziza sits on a bench by a lake. The water shimmers. Her phone buzzes. A text from Cairo's teacher, Miss Rainey. Text on screen. Aziza, Cairo cries a lot in class. He asks why you don't live together. Could you talk to him this weekend? She replies, then looks out at the water. From now on, my life might lack a man, but it can't lack courage. And Cairo will never lack a mother. Interior, Aziza's apartment, night. Aziza, drying her hair. The phone rings. A learning center. Mrs. Garcia? The tuition for the new term hasn't been paid. Normally you pay in advance. I'm not the custodial parent anymore. For all education expenses, please contact his father, Mr. Kenyatta. A pause of surprise on the line. She hangs up. Relief and pain intertwined. Her phone buzzes with a text from Kenyatta. Text on screen. Don't dump everything on me. The tuition is over $300. I can't get it. Pay this term and I promise, starting next one, I'll handle it. She reads it. A tired, bitter smile. She texts back. You asked for custody. Fulfill your responsibility. He calls immediately, voice irritated. Aziza, you're making it very hard for me. My checks are tight. If you love your son, you have to think about him. I'm not dumping him on you. You chose to have a wife. Now you have to pay the bill. Aziza, why are you so insensitive? Am I insensitive or are you a user? Think about it. She hangs up. The following days bring more calls. Art class, basketball camp, tuition unpaid, child missing. The tangled yarn of the life she left behind is unraveling. A text from Miss Rainey. Cairo couldn't focus. Says last night his father spoke badly to him, made him cry. He misses you hugging him to sleep. Aziza grabs her jacket, ready to run to him. The phone rings again. Unknown number. Mrs. Aziza, it's Booker from downstairs at Mr. Kenyatta's. Someone put a boot on his car for unpaid parking, and inside, shouting. Him arguing with that Lenanisha. The boy was there. She thanks him, hangs up, stands still in her apartment. The storm is happening, but not to her, to him. A strange, hollow feeling. Exterior, school, interior, car, day. Aziza picks up Cairo. He runs to her, hugs her fiercely. Mama, I don't want to be in that house anymore. Daddy is always angry, and Miss Lenanisha scolds me. I just want to come back with you. She holds him, his scent of childhood and sweat filling her heart. She takes him to the park. They sit on their bench. You'll live with Daddy, but on weekends I'll take you out. I haven't abandoned you, but Daddy is going through a tough time. He has to learn to take care of you. When you're older, you'll understand he has to assume his responsibility. Cairo rests his head on her shoulder. Mama, then you're not mad at me? I'm only mad at the adults. I've never been mad at you. Exterior, Kenyatta's condo, night. Aziza brings Cairo back. The house is a mess. Clothes, takeout containers. Kenyatta is at his computer, eyes red. Lenanisha lounges on the sofa with a face mask. She looks at Aziza with disdain. Why bring him so late? I still have to put him to bed. Aziza ignores her. Cairo runs to his room. Aziza surveys the chaos. Kenyatta, I spoke with the teacher. Cairo is in crisis. Don't you realize? Kenyatta rubs his forehead. I know, but I'm overwhelmed. Work, my mother nagging, Lenanisha angry because you come and go. I come and go for my son. I'm his mother. I have the right. Pauses. I'm asking you seriously. Can you take care of him? Financially? With your time? Emotionally? Kenyatta is silent, looking at the floor. If you can't, we have to renegotiate custody. Kenyatta jumps up. Do you want to take my son away? No, I want to save my son from the chaos we adults have created. Lenanisha gets up, face mask cracking. Don't play the saint. You want to take him and dump all the responsibility on Kenyatta, some mother who abandons her husband and house so easily. Aziza turns, eyes cold. You have no right to talk to me about this. Kenyatta and I divorced for something you know very well. She looks at Kenyatta, a shadow of the man she married. I give you 3 days to think about it. If Cairo's situation doesn't improve, I'll speak with the court to request custody. She leaves. Kenyatta does not stop her. Interior, lawyer's office, day. Aziza sits across from Thaddeus, 40s, sharp-eyed and perceptive. You want to change custody? Your case is solid. The court considers environment, economics, the child's psyche. If you have proof of instability, your chances are high. Proof? I have plenty. The third person brought home, the financial dependence, the nights my son waited at the door listening to them argue. Thaddeus nods. Prepare yourself. These disputes are never easy, but any mother who says she'll do whatever is necessary for her son's peace is the strongest client I can have. Interior, school hallway, day. Miss Rainey calls Aziza. Cairo is in the guidance room, hugging a cushion, eyes red. He says last night his father yelled that because of him, people look down on him. Lenamisha said he was a nuisance, a burden. Aziza's heart feels pierced. She kneels before Cairo. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. You will never be a burden. Never. Cairo collapses into her arms, crying. She holds him, knowing the real battle isn't for paper custody, but for this little soul. Interior, Kenyatta's house, night, flashback. Aziza arrives, door ajar. The scene is chaos. Overturned chair, broken plates, wine stains. In a corner, Cairo is curled up, shaking. Aziza? He looks up, runs to her. Mama, I'm scared. She holds him tight. Kenyatta stumbles from the kitchen, reeking of alcohol. What are you doing here? Aziza, low, furious. Look at your house. Is this a place for a child? It was just an accident. Lenanisha, OSS, yelling from bedroom. I can't take it anymore. This kid is a nuisance, always crying. Cairo hides his face in Aziza's chest. She stands, holding him. Kenyatta, I'm taking him. From now on, unless a judge decides, you won't be left alone with him. Can you take him? He's my son. Nobody is taking your son away. You lost him yourself. She walks out, every step firm, roots under her feet. No more doubt. Interior, courtroom, day. The final hearing. Aziza holds Cairo's hand. He clutches his teddy bear. Kenyatta looks haggard. The judge, 50s, severe but kind, speaks. The court has examined the evidence. The child's current environment is unstable, posing a risk of long-term psychological sequelae. Kenyatta tries to protest, but the judge silences him. She calls Cairo forward. Aziza accompanies him. He's trembling. Judge, what is your name? Cairo. How old are you? 8. Who would you like to live with? The room holds its breath. Cairo looks at Aziza, then at Kenyatta. He takes a deep breath. I want to live with my mama. Why? Because at my mama's house, I'm not scared. She doesn't yell. She hugs me when I cry, and I sleep well. My mama's house is very quiet. I want to stay there forever. Kenyatta seems to crumble in his seat. Aziza fights back tears. After considering all factors and the minor's expressed desire, the court awards exclusive custody of Cairo to his mother, Aziza Garcia. Mr. Kenyatta will have supervised visitation 3 times weekly for the first 2 months. Exterior, courthouse, day. Aziza walks out holding Cairo's hand. The sun is bright. Kenyatta follows, defeated. Aziza, I know this is what I deserve, but don't push me out of his life. A child always needs a father, but he needs a father who knows how to love him well. Take care of yourself, and he will come back to you. Kenyatta nods, eyes red. Thank you for at least letting me be his father. She walks away with her son. Interior, Aziza's apartment, night. Home. Cairo puts his teddy bear down, runs to hug Aziza. Mama, can we plant the white daisies now? Aziza, laughing through tears. Of course, tomorrow. Cairo, we'll plant them both, Mama. Now our house is a real house. Yes, Cairo. Starting today, the house of the 2 is a real house. She holds him on the small balcony. A soft breeze blows. A chapter closes. The pain, the tears, the sleepless nights, all for this moment of peace. Aziza, VO. Life taught me a lesson. The strongest mother isn't the one who sacrifices most, but the one who stands up in time to protect her son from what is wrong. Giving up a marriage isn't failure. Sometimes it's the only way to save a child's childhood. If you're going through a storm like mine, remember, there is no court more important than your son's heart. As long as he feels safe, feels loved, every bit of the fight will have been worth it. She looks down at Cairo, who smiles up at her, safe in their quiet, real home. Sunlight streams through the window of the small, tidy apartment. Cairo sits at a small table, drawing with intense concentration. Aziza watches from the kitchenette, a mug of coffee cooling in her hands. The peace is palpable. Her phone buzzes on the counter. A text from Thaddeus, her lawyer. Text on screen. Kenyatta's new lawyer filed a motion. They're challenging the temporary custody order, calling it premature and based on hearsay. Hearing scheduled for Thursday. Aziza's calm expression doesn't waver. She types a reply. Aziza, V.O. I'm ready. Cairo looks up from his drawing. Mama, is it from Daddy? Aziza, forcing a smile. It's just work, baby. What are you drawing? Cairo. It's our house, with the daisies, and you, and me, and I put Daddy in the corner, over there. Is that okay? He points to a small, carefully drawn figure in the corner of the page, separate from the main picture. Aziza's heart clenches. She walks over, kisses the top of his head. It's perfect, Cairo. It's honest. Interior, courtroom, day. A different, smaller courtroom. Kenyatta is there with his new lawyer, a sleek man named Mr. Vance. Leola sits in the front row, arms crossed, glaring at Aziza. Aziza sits beside Thaddeus, back straight. Judge Harris, a different judge, older, stern. This is a hearing on the motion to stay the temporary custody order. Mr. Vance, proceed. Mr. Vance. Your Honor, the order granted to Miss Garcia was based on a single emotionally charged incident. My client, Mr. Kenyatta, has taken immediate and corrective steps. He has ended his relationship with the third party mentioned. He is attending counseling. To remove a child from a parent based on one bad night is a draconian measure. Thaddeus stands. Your Honor, it was not one bad night. It was the culmination of months of documented instability that has caused demonstrable psychological harm to the child. School reports, counselor notes, all in the file. The corrective steps began after the child was removed from the hazardous environment. The temporary order is for the child's protection while the full custody evaluation proceeds. Judge Harris peers over his glasses at Kenyatta. Mr. Kenyatta, you are currently in a 2-bedroom apartment, is that correct? Kenyatta, standing, nervous. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Harris, and who resides there? Just me, sir, and my son on my visitation days. Judge Harris, your income? Kenyatta, about $2,800 a month after taxes. Judge Harris, and the mortgage on the former marital home? I'm behind, 2 months. I'm working on it. Mr. Vance shifts uncomfortably. Judge Harris, Miss Garcia, your income? Aziza, stands, calm. Just over $6,000 a month, Your Honor. Judge Harris, and your housing? A leased 2-bedroom apartment in a secure building. The lease is in my name. Judge Harris, looking at the file, the child expressed a clear preference to the presiding judge. The father admits to financial instability and a recently chaotic home environment. The mother appears to provide stability. To your client, Mr. Vance, his efforts at reform are noted for the final custody determination, but for the purpose of this temporary order, the child's well-being is paramount. Motion to stay is denied. The temporary custody order with Miss Garcia remains in full effect. We will proceed to the full custody evaluation. He bangs his gavel. Leola lets out an audible huff. Kenyatta slumps back into his chair, defeat etched on his face. Exterior courthouse day. Aziza and Thaddeus walk down the steps. One battle down. The evaluation is next. A court-appointed social worker will interview you, Kenyatta, Cairo, visit both homes. Be prepared. They look for everything. My home is ready. My life is an open book for Cairo. Suddenly, Kenyatta approaches. He looks exhausted, stripped of his earlier bluster. Kenyatta, please, can I see him? Not a formal visit, just for an ice cream, today. Aziza studies him. The anger is gone, replaced by a weary caution. You can call him tonight, on the video call. You can see him then. That's not... I want to talk to him, not through a screen. The court order says supervised visits, Kenyatta, starting next week. We'll follow the order. Her voice softens, just a fraction. Use the call tonight. Ask him about his drawing. He drew a picture of all of us. She turns and walks away with Thaddeus. Kenyatta stands alone on the steps. Interior Aziza's apartment. Evening. Aziza is helping Cairo with his bath. The phone rings. Video call. Kenyatta. She hands the tablet to Cairo, who is wrapped in a towel. Cairo, whispering. Hi, Daddy. Kenyatta, on screen. His face fills the screen, trying to smile. Hey, buddy. You look clean. Did you have a good day? Cairo. Yeah. Mama and me bought soil for the daisies. That's great. I heard you made a drawing. Cairo's eyes light up. He holds up the drawing to the camera. See? That's our new house, and Mama, and me, and the flowers. And that's you, over there. The camera lingers on the small figure in the corner. Kenyatta's face falls for a second, before he recovers. It's a really good drawing, Cairo. I'm in the picture. That's nice. Cairo. Mama says it's honest. A beat of silence. Kenyatta. She's right. Listen, buddy. Daddy's really sorry about the loud nights. I'm not going to have loud nights anymore. Cairo. Okay. The simplicity of the response is crushing. Aziza, listening from the doorway, closes her eyes. Kenyatta. I'll see you soon, okay? For real. We'll go to the park. Cairo. Okay. Bye, Daddy. Cairo hands the tablet back to Aziza. She ends the call. Cairo looks up at her, his expression unreadable. Daddy sounded sad. Aziza. Sometimes adults are sad about choices they've made, but that's not for you to fix, Cairo. Your job is to be a kid, to draw pictures and plant flowers. She wraps him in a hug. Interior Aziza's apartment, day, 1 week later. A knock at the door. A woman in her 40s, carrying a briefcase and a kind professional smile, stands there. Ms. Evelyn, the court-appointed social worker. Aziza Garcia? I'm Evelyn from Family Court Services, here for the home visit and interview. Of course, please come in. The visit is thorough. Evelyn examines Cairo's room, the kitchen, the living space. She notes the books, the art supplies, the small pot of daisy seedlings on the windowsill. She interviews Aziza alone, asking about her work schedule, her support system, her concerns. And how would you describe your co-parenting relationship now? It's non-existent as a partnership. I follow the court order. I ensure Cairo is available for calls and visits. My priority is to shield Cairo from conflict and provide consistency. I don't speak ill of his father to him, but I also don't make promises Kenyatta will have to keep. Evelyn writes notes. Then she asks to speak to Cairo alone. Aziza waits in the kitchen, her nerves a live wire. After 10 minutes, Cairo comes out, carrying a toy car. Evelyn follows, her expression neutral. Thank you for your time, Ms. Garcia. I'll be visiting Mr. Kenyatta tomorrow. My report will be submitted to the judge in about 2 weeks. Interior, Kenyatta's apartment. Day. The scene is starkly different. Kenyatta's apartment is a small, sparsely furnished one-bedroom. It's clean, but it feels temporary, empty. A single photo of Cairo sits on a bare table. Evelyn looks around, taking notes. Where would Cairo sleep when he's here? Kenyatta, pointing to a sofa that folds out. Right here. I'll get a real bed. Things have been tight. Evelyn, I see. And your plan for childcare after school on your visitation days. Kenyatta, I'm working on adjusting my shift, or my mother could help. Evelyn, the same mother who was financially dependent on your ex-wife? Kenyatta flushes. That's changed. We're figuring things out. Later, during the interview, what do you believe led to the breakdown of your marriage, Mr. Kenyatta? Kenyatta runs a hand over his face. I got comfortable. I let her carry everything. The money, the planning. I stopped being a partner. I felt small, so I looked for somewhere I felt bigger. It was a stupid, selfish mistake. I lost the best thing I ever had. Evelyn, and how does that relate to your ability to parent Cairo now? Kenyatta, I know I have to be different. I am different. Losing them, it's like a wake-up call I never wanted. I just want a chance to show my son I can be the dad he needs, even if it's just part-time. Interior Aziza's apartment, day. Aziza is in the middle of a work video conference when her personal phone lights up. Leola's name. She ignores it. It rings again. And again. Frustrated, she excuses herself from the call. Aziza, quietly, into phone. Ms. Leola, I'm at work. Leola, VO, crying, not angry but desperate. Aziza, please, I'm at the clinic. My blood pressure medicine. I can't afford it this month. Kenyatta gave me what he could, but it's not enough. I'm scared. The manipulation is clear, but beneath it, Aziza hears genuine panic. Have you applied for the senior prescription plan, the one at the county clinic? Leola, VO. It's so confusing. The forms, I don't understand. Aziza sighs, pinching the bridge of her nose. I can help you with the forms. Any money is out of the question. Send me a picture of them. I'll fill them out and send them back. You just have to sign and submit them. A long silence. You'd do that? After everything? This isn't about us. It's about you getting your medicine. Send me the forms. She hangs up. It's not a surrender, it's a boundary. Help that empowers, not enfeebles. Interior Visitation Center, day. A neutral, toy-filled room, the first supervised visit. Kenyatta sits awkwardly on a small chair. Cairo plays with blocks nearby, not looking at him. Supervisor sits in the corner, observing. That's a cool tower, buddy. Cairo. Mm-hmm. Kenyatta. How are the daisies? Cairo. They're growing. Silence. The minutes tick by painfully. Kenyatta. I got a new job. Well, a second job on weekends at the hardware store, so I can get caught up. Cairo just stacks another block. Cairo. Mama helped Grandma with her medicine papers. Kenyatta looks startled, then ashamed. She did? That's good of her. Cairo says grown-ups have to solve their own problems, but sometimes it's okay to show them how. The words, coming from his 8-year-old son, hit Kenyatta like a physical blow. He looks down at his hands. Your mama is a very smart woman, Cairo. For the first time, Cairo looks directly at him. I know. Interior, lawyer's office, day. Aziza and Thaddeus review Evelyn's preliminary report. It's thorough. She notes the stark difference in home environments. She notes Cairo's clear attachment to you and his expressed desire for stability. She also notes Kenyatta's remorse, his efforts to seek employment and counseling. She concludes that while you are the clearly preferred primary custodial parent, completely severing the father-son relationship at this juncture could be detrimental, provided the father continues his current path. What does that mean? It means the judge will likely grant you primary physical and legal custody. Kenyatta will get more liberal visitation than just supervised, probably every other weekend, one evening a week, but he'll have the final say on education, healthcare, where he lives. Aziza lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. It's not about winning everything. It's about securing Cairo's home base. There's one more thing. The report mentions your assistance to Leola with the medical forms. It's noted as a mature and boundary-conscious attempt to assist extended family without reinstating financial dependency. It plays well, Aziza. It shows character. Interior, courtroom, day, final hearing. The same judge from the temporary order, Judge Harris, presides. He reviews Evelyn's final report. This has been a difficult situation for all, most of all for the child. The court is encouraged by Mr. Kenyatta's recent efforts. However, stability and consistency are the pillars of a child's well-being. He looks at Aziza. Miss Garcia has consistently provided that. She has also demonstrated a commendable ability to set healthy boundaries while not withholding basic compassion. He looks at Kenyatta. Mr. Kenyatta, your journey toward responsibility appears to have begun, but it is just that, a beginning. The child cannot be the subject of that experiment. He announces his ruling, mirroring Thaddeus's prediction. Primary custody to Aziza. Kenyatta gets expanded, unsupervised visitation. Every other weekend, Wednesday dinners. Child support is set based on his new income, a modest but meaningful amount. This order is subject to review in 1 year. Mr. Kenyatta, continued stability on your part will be necessary for any future considerations. The court's interest is, and always will be, Cairo. The gavel falls. It's over. Exterior, park, day, 2 weeks later. A sunny afternoon. Aziza sits on a blanket. Cairo is kicking a soccer ball with another kid. Kenyatta approaches, hesitantly. It's his Wednesday visit. He sits on the edge of the blanket, a respectful distance away. He looks happy. He is. He's resilient. Silence. Not hostile, just heavy. I got the first child support payment out today. It's not much, but thank you. I talked to a realtor. I'm putting the house on the market. I can't keep it. The equity, after the mortgage is paid, half of what's left is yours. I'll have my lawyer send the papers. Aziza nods. This is the final unraveling of their shared life. That's fair. Kenyatta, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it now. All of it. What I had, what I threw away. I was so busy feeling emasculated by your strength that I forgot to be a man. Aziza looks at him, really looks at him. She sees the pain, the regret. The love she once felt is gone, but the humanity remains. Kenyatta, just be a father to him. That's the only amends that matters. Cairo runs over, breathless, his face flushed with joy. Mama, Daddy, did you see my goal? Aziza, we saw, amazing. Kenyatta reaches out, tentatively raffles Cairo's hair. Great kick, champ. For a moment, they exist in a fragile, peaceful triangle. Not a family as it was, but as it is now, defined not by a shared roof, but by a shared love for the boy between them. Interior, Aziza's apartment, night. The daisies are blooming in their pot on the windowsill. Cairo is asleep in his bed. Aziza stands in the doorway, watching him. She walks to the living room, sits in the quiet. She picks up Cairo's drawing from the coffee table. The house, the two of them, the flowers, the small figure in the corner. She takes a pen. Very carefully, she draws a faint, dotted line from the small figure in the corner to the main picture. not to join them, but to connect them, a path. She places the drawing back on the table. The divorce decree was an ending, but it was also a beginning, my beginning, our beginning. I learned that strength isn't about carrying everything in silence. It's about knowing what to put down and what to fight for. I put down the burden of his pride, his family's dependence, the illusion of a saving love. I fought for the quiet in this room, for the sound of my son breathing easy in his sleep, for the right to build a life where kindness is a choice, not an obligation. This small, quiet apartment with its blooming daisies isn't a compromise. It's a victory. And every night it's quiet, I win all over again. She looks out the window at the city lights, a calm certainty in her eyes. The storm has passed. The foundation, once shaken, is now solid, built by her own hands. The quiet in the apartment became a living thing, a presence she could finally breathe in. With the court order solidifying their new reality, a tentative rhythm began to define their weeks. Cairo's laughter, once so fragile, now echoed off the walls with a frequency that felt like healing. The Wednesday dinners and every other weekend visits with Kenyatta settled into a routine, awkward at first, then simply a fact of their lives. Kenyatta, to his credit, showed up. He was never late for pickup, and he returned Cairo exactly on time, often with a new book or a report card from a mini golf game. The conversations between him and Aziza were transactional, brief, and conducted on the doorstep, a careful dance around the crater of their past. He ate, his jackets in the bag. Aziza would nod. He has a science project due next Thursday. And that would be that. It was a ceasefire, not a peace treaty, but it allowed Cairo a neutral space in which to simply be a son to both of his parents. Aziza poured herself into building this new life, brick by careful brick. She enrolled in a Saturday morning pottery class, something she'd always wanted to try, her hands learning to shape clay instead of balance spreadsheets for a few precious hours. She made a friend there, a woman named Chloe who was divorced with a teenager, and their conversations over glazed mugs were blessedly free of pity, full of dark humor and shared understanding. One evening, Leola called again, not for money, but to say, haltingly, that the county had approved her prescription assistance. The forms, they worked, she said, her voice carrying a complex mix of gratitude and residual shame. Thank you, Aziza. It was a small moment, but it felt like a seismic shift. The dynamic of giver and taker had been permanently altered. Help, when given, was now a choice, not an expectation, and that made all the difference. At work, she found a new focus. Freed from the constant emotional drain of her marriage, her sharp mind became even sharper. She led a difficult merger negotiation with a calm, ruthless efficiency that earned her a promotion and a significant raise. The financial security was more than numbers in a bank account. It was the concrete foundation of the future she was building for herself and Cairo. She used part of the bonus to enroll him in a weekend robotics league, watching with a full heart as he bent over circuit boards with his teammates, his brow furrowed in concentration, completely absorbed in a world of his own making. He was thriving, and his happiness was the ultimate validation of every difficult choice she had made. The one-year review of the custody order came and went, with little fanfare. Kenyatta had maintained his stability, holding down his jobs, staying in counseling, keeping his small apartment orderly for Cairo's visits. The judge commended his efforts and kept the arrangement unchanged. After the hearing, Kenyatta approached her in the hall. He looked older, but calmer, the frantic desperation gone from his eyes. "I read that report card," he said. "All A's. You're doing an amazing job with him." The compliment, so simple and unprompted, caught her off guard. "We both are," she replied, and meant it. The "we" was different now. Not a couple, but two separate pillars, both supporting the same precious weight. On Cairo's 9th birthday, they had a party at the apartment. Chloe and a few of his school friends were there, the room buzzing with shrieks and the smell of pizza. Kenyatta came, bearing an extravagantly large remote control car. He stayed for cake, standing slightly apart, but he laughed at the right moments and helped clean up spilled juice. Watching him interact with Cairo, a simple, easy hug goodbye, Aziza felt the last lingering knots of resentment begin to loosen. He was not the man she had married, nor the villain of her divorce. He was just Kenyatta, Cairo's father, a flawed man trying to do better. And that was enough. Later that night, after the last guest had left and Cairo was asleep, surrounded by his new toys, Aziza stood on her small balcony. The city hummed below, a river of light and sound. She thought of the woman she was a year ago, standing in a courthouse, holding a paper that felt like a death sentence. That woman was a ghost now. In her place was someone who knew her own strength, who had looked into the abyss of starting over and had not flinched. The journey had been brutal, isolating, and at times she had felt carved hollow by the pain. But in that hollow space, she had built something stronger, a life of intention, not obligation, a home defined by peace, not perimeter, a love for her son that was fierce and clear, unclouded by the resentment of a dying marriage. She went inside and checked on Cairo. In the soft glow of his nightlight, she saw the drawing from a year ago, now framed on his wall. The two figures, the daisies, and the small figure in the corner connected by her faint dotted line. It was no longer a map of separation, but of a constellation, different points, held in a new and stable arrangement. She kissed his forehead, her heart so full it ached. The story wasn't a fairy tale. There was no prince, no grand reunion, no erasure of the past. But it was hers. It was real. And in its quiet, hard-won authenticity, it was more beautiful than any fantasy she had ever dared to believe in. The silence that enveloped her wasn't emptiness. It was fullness. It was the sound of a battle ended, of a self-reclaimed, and a future wide open and bright, finally beginning. The seasons turned, marked not by the tension that once gripped their household, but the gentle, predictable milestones of a childhood finally allowed to unfold. Cairo turned 10, then 11. The robotics league gave way to a passion for astronomy, and Aziza found herself driving him to weekend observatory trips, sitting beside him in the dark as he whispered the names of constellations with a reverence that filled her with awe. Her own life expanded in quieter, deeper ways. The pottery class led to a small studio space she shared with Chloe. Their creations, a little lopsided, glazed in bold, imperfect colors, filled her apartment with tangible proof of a joy that was hers alone. She dated, tentatively, an architect named David who appreciated her silence as much as her conversation, and who never once made her feel she had to be less than she was. It didn't last, but it ended without drama. A proof of concept that her heart could still engage without being engulfed. Kenyatta's path was slower, more arduous. The sale of the house finally closed, and with his share, he secured a modest but proper two-bedroom condo, so Cairo would have his own room on visitations. He worked his way up to assistant manager at the hardware store. His hands, which once trembled holding a phone to call his mistress, now steady and capable as he taught Cairo how to build a birdhouse. He never missed a child support payment. Here, Aziza developed a functional, almost cordial co-parenting partnership. They coordinated over a shared digital calendar, texted about dentist appointments and science fair topics. On rare occasions, at a school play or a soccer game where Cairo scored a goal, they would find themselves standing side by side, sharing a look of pure, undiluted pride in their son. In those fleeting moments, the ghost of their shared history felt not like a wound, but simply a fact, a distant country they had both, thankfully, left. Leola's dependence shifted from financial to emotional in a way that surprised them all. She became, of all things, a bridge. She would call Aziza to gossip about the neighbors or to ask for a recipe she remembered Aziza making years ago. She doted on Cairo during his visits with Kenyatta, but her stories now included, "Your mother was so smart to help me with those forms," or "You have your mother's determination." It was a belated acknowledgement, but it was genuine. One Thanksgiving, Kenyatta hosted, and Aziza and Cairo went for dessert. Sitting in his tidy living room eating store-bought pie, it was achingly normal. Leola fussed over Cairo, Kenyatta offered Aziza more coffee, and for a few hours, the shattered pieces of what was once a family were rearranged into a new, peaceful mosaic. There was no going back, but there was, remarkably, a way forward together, apart. The greatest change, however, was in Cairo himself. The anxious shadow that had clung to him for years dissolved completely. He became a boy of easy laughter and quiet confidence. He spoke of my mom's apartment and my dad's place with equal affection, a citizen of two stable nations. One afternoon, when he was 12, he was working on a model solar system at Aziza's dining table. He looked up, thoughtful. "You know, Mom," he said, his voice no longer a little boy's, "I think I get it now." "Get what, sweetie?" Aziza asked, pausing as she washed dishes. "Why you and Dad had to live apart. It wasn't because you didn't love me." Her breath caught. "Never, never that." "I know," he said simply. "It was because you couldn't live together and both be okay. And now you both are, and I am too." Tears pricked her eyes, not of sadness, but of a profound relief so deep it felt like a physical unclenching. He understood. He hadn't just survived the rupture, he had comprehended its necessity. In his adolescent wisdom, he had granted them both absolution. Years continued their quiet march. Aziza built a thriving consultancy, her name synonymous with shrewd insight and integrity. She bought a small house with a garden where the daisies multiplied wildly. Kenyatta remarried, a kind, soft-spoken librarian named Maria, who treated Cairo with gentle respect. Aziza felt only a mild, benign gladness for him. The last ember of bitterness had long since turned to cold ash, swept away by the winds of a life well lived. One evening, as she sat in her garden watching fireflies spark in the twilight, Cairo, now a lanky teenager home from college for the summer, brought her a cup of tea. He sat beside her on the porch swing, the old wood creaking familiarly. "You happy, Mom?" he asked, his shoulder comfortably pressed against hers. She looked at him, at the man he was becoming, so full of kindness and quiet strength. She looked at her garden, her home, the life she had crafted from the rubble of despair. She thought of the peace that lived in her bones, a peace she had fought for and won. "Yes, baby," she said, her voice sure and clear in the gathering dark. "I am profoundly, completely happy." And it was the truth. The long war was over. The scars remained, but they were just that, scars, not open wounds. They were part of her map, proof of the terrain she had crossed. She had learned that love could be a verb of release as much as possession, that family could be a flexible, elastic thing, and that the strongest foundation a person could ever build was the one within themselves. The story of Aziza was no longer a story of divorce, of betrayal, of custody battles. It was a story of reclamation. It was the story of a woman who walked through fire and emerged not just intact, but forged into something brighter, truer, and unbreakably whole. And as the first stars appeared above them, mirroring the fireflies in her garden, she knew with absolute certainty that every difficult step, every tear, every moment of heartbreak had been worth it. For this peace, for this boy, for this self. This was her victory, and its quiet song would echo for the rest of her days. The quiet song of her victory became the soundtrack to a life of deliberate contentment. Cairo graduated university with a degree in environmental engineering, his passion for the stars having evolved into a commitment to the earth. At the ceremony, Aziza sat beside Kenyatta and Maria. When their son's name was called, they stood together, a trio of beaming, separate lives united in a singular pride. The photograph from that day showed them all laughing, Aziza's arm looped loosely through Cairo's, Kenyatta's hand on his son's shoulder. It was a picture not of what was lost, but of what had been carefully, painstakingly rebuilt. With Cairo launched into the world, Aziza found a new chapter opening. She sold her consultancy, not to retire, but to pivot. She began volunteering with an organization that provided financial literacy workshops for women leaving situations of domestic or financial dependency. She didn't just teach budgeting, she told stories. She spoke of automatic transfers canceled, of the terrifying, liberating sound of one's own voice saying no, of the profound strength found in building your own table instead of begging for a seat at someone else's. The women in her classes, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and dawning hope, saw in her not just a teacher, but a live-in prophecy, a vision of the other side of the storm. One autumn, Leola passed away peacefully in her sleep. At the small, tender funeral, Kenyatta gave the eulogy, his voice thick with a complicated grief. Afterward, Kenyatta handed Aziza a small, worn jewelry box. "She wanted you to have this," he said. Inside was not a piece of valuable jewelry, but the old, tarnished locket Leola had worn every day, containing faded pictures of a young Kenyatta and, surprisingly, a tiny snapshot of Cairo as a toddler Aziza had given her long ago. It was the final, wordless apology, the ultimate acknowledgement. Aziza clasped it in her palm, the metal warm from Kenyatta's hand, and felt the last vestige of that old resentment dissolve into a soft, melancholic grace. Her life was full of friends, of travel, of the deep satisfaction of her volunteer work. David, the architect, re-entered her life, his own divorce long finalized. This time there was no tentativeness. They were two whole people choosing to weave their independent lives together, enjoying the quiet companionship of shared mornings and the vibrant adventures of their travels. He loved her for her resilience, not in spite of it, and she loved him for the effortless space he gave her to simply be. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, Cairo called. His voice, usually so steady, held a tremor of momentous news. "Mom," he said, "I proposed to Maya. She said yes." Maya was the bright, fierce young lawyer he'd been dating for 3 years, a woman who looked at Aziza not as a future mother-in-law, but as a kindred spirit. Joy, pure and effervescent, flooded Aziza's heart. The planning began, a whirlwind of cake tastings and fabric swatches that she navigated with Maya's mother in a delightful, easy alliance. The wedding was held in a sun-dappled garden. As Aziza walked down the aisle alone, a vision in deep blue silk, her head high, she felt the collective gaze of the guests, not with pity, but with respect, with admiration for the journey that had led to this moment of pure celebration. She took her seat in the front row. Kenyatta, looking dignified with streaks of gray in his hair, sat with Maria a few feet away. They exchanged a brief, warm smile. When the officiant asked, "Who supports this union?" both Aziza and Kenyatta stood, their voices clear and separate, yet harmonizing in the same answer. "We do." It was a powerful, unscripted moment. They were not presenting a united front from a shared home, but offering parallel pillars of support from the distinct, solid lives they each had built. At the reception, under strings of lights, Cairo found her on the dance floor. He took her hands, his eyes shimmering. "Thank you, Mom," he said, his voice low. "For what, my love? For the open bar?" she teased, her eyes misty. He shook his head, smiling. "For showing me what real strength looks like, for teaching me that leaving can be an act of love, for building a home so full of peace that I always knew exactly what to look for when I built my own." He pulled her into a hug, and in his arms, she felt the complete circle. Her struggles had not broken him. They had, in fact, armed him with a blueprint for integrity, for choosing well, for honoring his own peace. Later, as she danced with David, watching Cairo and Maya spin together, their faces radiant, she caught Kenyatta's eye across the room. He raised his glass to her, a silent, heartfelt toast. She raised hers in return. No words were needed. The past was a closed book, its painful chapters now the necessary prologue to this joy-filled present. That night, back in her own home, the quiet was different. It was no longer the quiet of solitude hard won, but the rich, deep quiet of a life fully lived and deeply loved. She stood in her garden, the same daisies still blooming rebelliously along the path. The moon hung, a silver coin in the vast, dark sky. She thought of the young woman she had been, trembling with a divorce decree in her hand, believing her story was over. She had been so wrong. That was not the ending. It was the brutal, necessary beginning. Every tear had watered this resilience. Every heartache had carved out this capacity for joy. Every no had made the subsequent yes infinitely more precious. Her story was not a tragedy redeemed by a new man. It was an epic of self-reclamation. The love of her life had not been a person she met, but the person she had been forced to become. And she had fallen in love with that woman, with her strength, her wisdom, her hard-won peace. She was the hero of her own tale, and this contentment was her happy ending, one she built with her own two hands, day by patient day. The future stretched before her, not as a question, but as a promise, a continuation of this beautiful, quiet, unshakable victory. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. The years that followed the wedding were painted in the gentle, golden hues of a late afternoon sun. Aziza's life settled into a rhythm that was both vibrant and profoundly peaceful. She and David split their time between her garden-cloaked house and a small, sun-bleached cottage by the sea, where the only sounds were the crash of waves and the rustle of pages turning. Her volunteer work blossomed into a formal mentorship program. She took a handful of women under her wing each year, guiding them not just through spreadsheets, but through the emotional archaeology of reclaiming their self-worth. She saw her younger self in their determined eyes, and in helping them find their footing, she laid to rest the last ghosts of her own past. Cairo and Maya built a life a few towns over, close enough for Sunday dinners, but far enough to nurture their own independence. When Maya became pregnant, Aziza felt a thrill of joy so pure it was like a second sunrise. She prepared the nursery not in her own home, but in theirs, following Maya's lead with a grandmother's eager hands. The day her granddaughter, Layla, was born, Aziza held the tiny, perfect being and wept silent tears. This was a new love, untainted by any history, a fresh branch on the family tree she had once feared was blighted. Kenyatta, now Pop-Pop, was a surprisingly doting grandfather, his rough hands impossibly gentle with the baby. At Layla's christening, he and Aziza stood side by side again, this time peering into a carrier at a sleeping face that held traces of both them. The circle had widened, its center now this new, beloved life. Time, the great healer and gentle thief, did its work. Kenyatta's hair turned fully silver, his gait a little slower. One cool evening, he called Aziza. His voice was soft, not with sadness, but with a kind of quiet completion. "I just wanted to say," he began, then paused. "I wanted to say thank you. For Cairo. For being the mother you were. For letting me find a way back to him, even when I didn't deserve it." The words hung in the quiet between them, spanning decades of pain and progress. "You built a good man, Aziza," he finished. She accepted the thanks, not as absolution she needed, but as a gift he needed to give. "We both did, Kenyatta," she replied. "We both did." When he passed a few years later, a quiet death from a heart that had finally worn out, it was Maria who called. Aziza attended the funeral, a somber but dignified affair. She held Cairo's hand as he delivered a eulogy that spoke of forgiveness, second chances, and a father's love that ultimately found its way. She saw the man her son had become, grounded, compassionate, whole, and knew that even the flawed love of his father had been a necessary thread in the tapestry of his life. In her 70s, Aziza's world grew quieter, but no less rich. David remained her steadfast companion, their love a deep, still river. Layla was a frequent visitor, a whirlwind of energy who called Aziza's garden the fairy kingdom. One afternoon, as they planted new daisy seedlings together, Layla, now 8, the same age Cairo had been when everything fell apart, looked up with soil-smudged cheeks. "Grandma," asked Aziza, "were you ever scared?" Aziza sat back on her heels, the sun warm on her neck. "Oh, many times, my darling." "What of?" of being alone, of failing, of the future being dark. She brushed a curl from Layla's forehead. But you know a secret? Sometimes you have to walk through the dark to find a much brighter light on the other side. Layla pondered this, her young face serious. Did you find your light? Aziza looked around, at the blooming garden she had nurtured, at the comfortable house that held a lifetime of love, at the vibrant, fearless girl before her. She thought of Cairo, happy and secure. She felt the enduring love of David, the respect of her friends, the profound satisfaction of a life built on her own terms. "Yes, my love," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion too vast for words. "Yes, I found it. I built it myself." That night, as she sat on the porch swing with David, watching fireflies dance in the twilight just as they had for decades, a profound sense of completion settled over her. The story was finished, not because it was ending, but because every question had been answered. Every wound had transformed into a mark of strength. Every loss had made way for a greater gain. She had loved and been betrayed, and learned that her capacity to love was greater than any betrayal. She had been brought low, and discovered that the view from the ground taught her how to build a foundation no storm could shake. She had fought for her son, and in doing so had found herself. The timid woman who silently funded her mother-in-law's life was gone. In her place was a woman of unassailable peace, a matriarch not by blood alone, but by earned wisdom and boundless, resilient love. The final chapter was not one of dramatic triumph, but of quiet, daily gratitude. It was in the taste of morning coffee, the sound of David's steady breathing beside her at night, the riotous laughter of Layla in her garden, the deep, abiding connection with her son. Her happiness was not a fleeting emotion, but the very atmosphere of her life. She closed her eyes, listening to the familiar night sounds. There were no more dragons to slay, no more battles to fight. There was only this, a life, her life, lived fully, loved deeply, and wrought entirely by her own courageous hands. It had been a long journey from the courthouse steps, a path paved with tears and tempered by fire. And as the last of the light faded from the sky, Aziza knew with absolute certainty that she had arrived, at last, exactly where she was meant to be. The ink was barely dry on the divorce papers. Standing on the courthouse steps, I could already hear him on the phone with her, planning their celebration. 10 years of marriage erased in a cold courtroom nod. But the real shock wasn't his mistress. It was the call from my mother-in-law, already asking for her monthly allowance. That's when I realized, to them, I wasn't a wife, a daughter-in-law, or even a person. I was an ATM.